Welcome to the Reduced Cyber Risk Podcast, where we give you the tools you need to meet your regulatory requirements while helping keep the evil hacker horde at bay. Hi, my name is Shon Gerber, and I'm your host for this action-packed, informative podcast. Join me each week as I provide the information you need to best protect your business and reduce your company's cyber risk. All right, let's get going. Okay, in this episode, we're going to be talking about cyber insurance. So this is something you're going to need to consider as you have a business and as you deal with cybersecurity in your business. Is it really important to have? Now, I'm going to talk about some of the key points to consider as you're looking at cyber insurance for your business, but also something you need to consider as well is that as we get more and more companies are getting this cyber insurance, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge with these insurance companies because in the past, they've been making money hand over fist in this space. And so now it's looking like, well, there's more claims that are happening. So they're going to get a little tighter on what they do. It's kind of what I'm getting from a sense of what I'm seeing in the market. There's some key points we're going to talk about here, and they're going to basically transfer to any business that you have. However, one thing to consider is that as the time of releasing of this video, a lot of stuff is probably be changing. So in the next 24 to 48 months, we're going to see, I believe, a very large change in the cybersecurity insurance business, especially as we get more and more threats that are affecting companies. So bottom line disclaimer, you got to have it. I mean this in the fact that most people say, well, yeah, I got to have insurance. But in the case of companies, sometimes companies don't want to have cyber insurance within their company because they think it's not necessary. But in today's world, when your systems are interconnected, it's really something you have to consider getting for your business because one breach, and if you don't have this at a minimum, it's almost an entry stakes. I mean, if you're playing this poker game, right? But in so many cases, you get one bad breach and you're out of business. So you may work your whole life to have a business, and in just a short period of time, it's gone. So consider having cybersecurity insurance as we go through these things. Now, what is the definition of it? Insurance product used to protect businesses and individual users from internet-based risks and more generally from risks relating to information, technology, infrastructure, and activities. Lots of big words, really confusing. Yeah. Basically, it's designed that it's to protect you from internet-based stuff. So somebody clicking on a link, somebody getting access to your system, they pilfering all of your data and shipping it all out to wherever, right? So basically when this began is back in the 1990s, and they talked about digital cash, and realistically it remained a niche until about 2005. And now as we've been getting more and more audits, or I should say more regulatory requirements around this, it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And if a business is smart, they use from mitigating risk, what you typically will look at is, do I have protections in place to mitigate the risk, or do I transfer the risk? And in this case here, you would transfer the risk, and they're using an insurance product to do that. So you have a couple different kinds of risks. You have a first-party risk, which is basically loss or damage of your own specific data. A data center melts down, a hacker gets in, whatever it might be, but that's first-party risk. If it's just your data, then I guess that's good, right? So then you just lose your data, not somebody else's, but you still lost your data. So the insurance is to help mitigate that issue. There's also built into these insurance, if you have incident response process and so forth, is built into this as well. Now, I have that bullet down there where you talk about it's kind of rare, right? So if you have a business, it's extremely rare that your business is only your data. In many, many cases, you have other kinds of business data that may not be yours. It may be a vendor's, it could be your customers, but in reality, it's very rare that it's just your data specifically, just for your company. You make widget, and widget produces, or you make this manufacturing, and you create this thing, and it has all this data, and it pops out a widget. Okay, when this widget, you're going, oh, all right, I'm good. If you don't have any other data in there, so you got no vendors plugging in, you got no customer data in there, it's just you from beginning to end, then that's first-party risk, and you're good to go. Gets breached, melts down, well, you're out of luck, but hey, it's not affecting other people. However, you got third-party risk, which is liability to clients, government, or regulatory entities. In their example, and this I have, is SAP was hacked. I've seen in situations where the SAP was hacked, and if that gets hacked, you now have gobs of data in SAP, because what is SAP? SAP is basically the brains of your system, and they call it ERP, which I don't remember what the acronym means. Yeah, employee resource, I don't know. It's ERP. But bottom line is it's the brains that has all of your stuff. So if you have customer data in there, you got shipping data in there, you've got intellectual property data, it's it. That gets hacked, you got all kinds of issues, right? So what most cyber policies offer a combination of traditional liability coverage, somebody runs into you, right? And they have cybersecurity coverage as well. So you have all of these things that are built into this. Now there's also privacy liability coverage. Now this thing here is when you have your data and you say for instance, it kind of falls into the HIPAA aspects of it as well. Your data's privacy. So you have individuals, I've got this big, huge cyst on the back of my head, and I don't want anybody else to know about it kind of data, right? That's PII, personally identifiable information. You are the only person in the world that has a cyst the size of a softball on the back of your head. So that's identifiable, right? But a lot of that is dependent upon the state and locality. So in the case of, let's just say Massachusetts has very strict PII or privacy data requirements. Whereas maybe somewhere like I'm in Kansas, it may not have as stringent of a requirement around privacy data. So it will vary. It also will vary from province or county even in some cases. So that's kind of different. Countries for sure, right? You got EU, the GDPR, you've got China, you've got other countries as well. I know Vietnam's putting something out right now that's like going to totally just shut down the internet more or less. So it varies, right? From country to country, localities, cities, states, and so forth. The one thing that there's a bullet down here is avoid language that states you are not covered if failure to protect confidential information regardless of cause. You want to avoid that kind of language because bottom line is that says right then and there is that if you failure to protect any confidential information regardless of the cause, you ain't getting paid. So avoid those kind of languages if you see that in your contracts. Regulatory actions. Now, these regulatory actions, sometimes the policies will cover that. There's variances will run between different regulatory requirements from one to the next, and this can get really expensive as well. So some policies may require a formal suit to be filed before they'll even cover it. So let's just say you get hacked and you go, and you got government data in there. Hopefully it's not state secrets, right? But you got government data in there. And what'll end up happening is but the policy, you say, yeah, you're covered for that, but they won't go ahead and pay until it's actually a formal suit has been filed for the coverage, right? And then there are some civil fines and penalties can be included in the coverage of some of these policies, but they have certain cap limits on how much they're going to be willing to pay as well. So you have different regulatory requirements. So let's just go for an example, the FEC or the SEC. So the Security and Exchange Commission. So the SEC can go ahead and fine you for something, let's say if you're financial, right? But then also dependent upon how the data was transferred, the FEC, I think it's FEC, Federal Communication, those people, communication people, FFs, too many acronyms, but basically, you know what I'm getting at. You can have multiple government entities can actually sue you for the same thing. So that's something else to consider, right? But being mindful if the insurance company seeks to exclude this coverage. So if they look to exclude the penalties and fines, keep that in mind, especially if you are dealing with a government agency. So something to consider on that. Notification costs. Now, there's costs associated when you notify people. So you've been breached. You got to go send out press releases. You got to email the customers. You got to let everybody know. You got to have a call center set up so if people call in and they can actually have it resolved, you got to pay for that. So all of that, public relations, phone banks, advertising, you name it, it's all got to be there for someone that gets breached. And those are notification costs. So why is this an important situation? Cybersecurity is becoming a priority for many third parties, and they have riders that are becoming a requirement on many new contracts that are being set up. So unless your company is self-insured and you don't have to worry about it, these are some things you're going to have to deal with. An example we've got is a Target breach. Now, when Target, the company that has all the clothes and the food and all that kind of stuff, the Target brand, the big red bullseye and the cute little white dog thing, when their breach occurred, there was almost $800 million when it's all said and done is what it cost. And that includes what was lost in revenue, what was cost to remediate, what was cost in reputational issues. But they're saying in excess of $800 million is what cost the company. That's $1 billion almost. So, I mean, it's huge. So the key thing is you need to consider cybersecurity insurance, especially if you're a small to medium-sized business, because in reality, you can't absorb that. A big Target, they can absorb it, but even $1 billion, that's a lot to absorb by a big company. So something to consider around that. So as I finish this up, one of the things to consider is that you need to really consider the possibility to help you reduce the judgment if breached. So in the case of cybersecurity insurance, so let's just say you go out and you do something and you have your network in place and you don't do a good job of securing your network. Well, what's going to happen is now the judge is going to come back after you. Now, if you've done the things you should do, you still have cybersecurity insurance, that's going to help you. And in many cases, the insurance companies are going to require you to do some level of security assessment to prove that you have a solid secure network. They may even ask you that. Depends on how much insurance you're going to get. But the other thing is that if you go to a judge, and let's just say it's a wrongful negligence suit, right? So you did something you shouldn't be doing, and they're coming after your business for the money. Well, if they see, and you go talk to the judge, and you're going through all of these things with the court, and you say, well, you know what? I've done this securities thing. I've got this in place. I've got these protections in place. I've got all these policies in place. And on top of that, I have a cybersecurity insurance to help in the event that there's things that I may have missed. That's going to go much better for you, potentially, than just going, well, I don't know. I ain't paying attention to it. No big deal, right? Okay, I don't have much for security, don't have a breach response plan, and I don't have any cybersecurity insurance. So, yeah, so what, right? That probably won't go well. So, not that even having all of those things will go well. You never know. But bottom line is the courts want to know that you have done your due diligence and you've done everything in your power to secure and protect that data. That's what it comes down to. And having a cybersecurity policy is another step that you can do to prove that you value your customers' data and you value other people's data to protect it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this part. It's about cybersecurity insurance. We went over a lot of different areas in this area, but the main thing here is that you need to consider really getting it for your business, because if you don't, odds are high you're going to end up running into trouble as time goes on. All right, check me out if you got any other issues. Check us out on Reduce Cyber Risk. We're always there for you, and if there's anything else we can do, let me know. All right, see ya.